Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small one-room log cabin in Kentucky. His parents, Thomas and Nancy Lincoln, were poor farmers, and young Abe's childhood was filled with hardship. He had little access to formal education, attending school only occasionally, yet he had an insatiable thirst for knowledge. With just a few borrowed books, he taught himself to read and write by candlelight. When he was 9, tragedy struck. His mother died from a milk sickness, leaving the family devastated. His father remarried a kind woman, Sarah Bush Johnston, who encouraged Abe's love for learning. As a teenager, Lincoln worked tirelessly, chopping wood, farming, and ferrying goods down the Mississippi River. Despite his tough upbringing, Lincoln dreamed of a bigger life. He moved to New Salem, Illinois, and worked as a store clerk. He made a name for himself with his honesty and storytelling skills. Soon, he discovered his true calling, law and politics. His journey to greatness had just begun. Lincoln's journey into law was anything but conventional. Without formal schooling, he borrowed law books and studied on his own, often reading by the flickering light of a fireplace. By the 1830s, he had passed the bar exam and started practicing as a lawyer. His sharp mind, honesty, and ability to simplify complex legal matters made him stand out. In court, Lincoln became famous for his compelling arguments and wit. One of his most remarkable cases involved defending a man accused of murder. Using astronomical records, he proved that the key witness couldn't have seen the crime because the moon was in the wrong position. His client was acquitted. But Lincoln wasn't just a lawyer, he was also a passionate speaker. His debates and speeches attracted attention, and soon he entered politics. He served in the Illinois state legislature and later in Congress. Though he lost several elections, he never gave up. His perseverance and commitment to justice were about to propel him toward the highest office in the land. Abraham Lincoln, a man of unshakable principles and powerful rhetoric, had already captivated the nation through his legendary debates with Senator Stephen Douglas. His stance against the expansion of slavery made him a beacon of hope for some and a dire threat to others. When Lincoln won the presidency, the nation erupted. The South, convinced that his leadership meant the end of their way of life, didn't wait for him to take office. One by one, states seceded, forming the Confederacy. America was fracturing before his eyes. Even before stepping into the White House, Lincoln faced death threats, forcing him to travel in disguise to Washington. On March 4, 1861, standing before a divided nation, he delivered his first inaugural address, an urgent plea for unity and peace. But the wheels of war were already turning. 1 month later, the first cannon fire at Fort Sumter marked the beginning of the bloodiest conflict in American history. Lincoln was no longer just a leader, he was now the president of a country at war. The war that tested a nation. A divided country, a relentless war, a leader determined to preserve the Union. The Civil War was the bloodiest conflict in American history, a brutal test of endurance, loyalty, and leadership. Abraham Lincoln, the man at the helm, faced immense pressure from hesitant generals, from citizens who doubted him, and from political enemies who sought his downfall. Amidst the chaos, Lincoln remained resolute. His mission was clear: to save the Union at all costs. Then came a turning point. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation shifted the war's purpose. It was no longer just about preserving the Union, it was about freedom. Though it did not immediately free all enslaved people, it ensured that foreign powers like Britain and France would never support the Confederacy. The war was now a battle for the soul of the nation. Lincoln's words ignited hope. His Gettysburg Address, just 272 words long, redefined America's purpose. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. As the war dragged on, Lincoln's leadership was tested like never before. But by 1865, the tide had turned. Victory was on the horizon. The fate of the Union and the future of a nation hung in the balance. On April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union forces at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was finally over. Lincoln had done the impossible. He had preserved the Union and abolished slavery. The nation could begin to heal. But just days later, on April 14th, Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater. In the middle of the performance, John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, entered the president's box and shot him in the head. The next morning, Abraham Lincoln was dead. The nation was devastated. Millions mourned as his funeral train traveled across the country. People lined up for miles to say their final goodbyes. Though Lincoln's life was cut short, his legacy lived on. He had freed millions, saved a nation, and proved that democracy could withstand even its darkest hour. Today, he remains one of the most revered figures in American history, a man who rose from nothing to become the leader who shaped a nation. But history isn't just about the past. It shapes our present and future. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like this video, share it with others, and leave a comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the most fascinating moments in history. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.